Hey everybody, Ryan here at eTrailer.com. Today on our 2016 Ford C-Max, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the Roadmaster high power diode wiring kit. The diode wiring kit is going to provide the back of our car with the necessary lighting functions as we flat tow it behind our motorhome, which in turn is going to keep us safe and legal. It's going to provide us with our tail lights, our left turn signal, our right turn signal, and our brake lights. Now what separates this wiring kit from some of the others is the fact that it's going to use diodes. Now those diodes are going to protect your factory vehicle wiring if a short were to occur in your RV. Many of our customers really like how reliable this kit is. Very few of them had any issues whatsoever. Now one of the problems a few of those customers had is with the terminals on the diodes. Now one way to prevent any issues with them is to be very careful when hooking them up during your installation, and also to use a little bit of dielectric grease, and that'll help prevent any corrosion. The 5 components for a flat tow setup are going to be your base plate, your diode wiring kit, your braking system, a tow bar, and safety cables. To begin our installation, we're going to first need to open up our hatch and remove our tail lights. On the side, we're going to have a access panel, which we can just get our finger underneath and pry it forward, pop it out, and set it off to the side. Now inside of here, we're going to need to disconnect our electrical connector. There will be a small tab in the center. We're going to push down on it and pull the connector away from the tail light. And here's a small tab that you'll need to push down on. Now once that's disconnected, we're going to have 2 plastic wing nuts that we need to unscrew. I'll just set these off to the side for now. Alright, now we're at the point where we can pop our tail light out. And to do that, the front should be pretty loose, but there will be some alignment pins that are going to be keeping our light in. So to release those, just take my palm, kind of put some forward pressure on that tail light to get it to pop out. Now the passenger side is going to be set up the exact same way, so we'll just repeat that same process. Now I'm going to use a test light to figure out which signals our wiring is putting out. So I'm going to first try to find our tail light signal, or also known as your running light signal. So I'm just going to probe the back of our connector until our test light lights up. So there we have a steady taillight signal, and so that will be the purple wire with the green stripe. I'll do the same thing on the passenger side, which it's the same wire, so that wire will be purple with the green stripe. I went ahead and had a friend step on the brake pedal, and I found that this solid purple wire is our brake signal. And it'll be the same solid purple wire on both sides. Now I'm going to take a Fishwire, which I'm using a piece of nylon tubing. You could use a coat hanger to do the same thing. We're going to drop it down our tail light pocket until we get it to come out of the bottom of our vehicle. And the reason we're doing this is so we can take our wiring and connect it, and then we can easily pull it up. So now we can take our wiring. We're going to actually need to cut off this 4-pole connector. We'll bring it back a little ways. Get rid of that. And then we need to separate this wiring. So we'll carefully kind of cut them apart from each other and peel them back. Now we're going to be running the yellow, brown, and white wire up into the driver's side. So we'll leave these together for the most part, but we will separate the green wire from those, and we can just peel off about 5 or 6 foot of that wire. So we're going to take our 3 wires and tape them to the bottom of our Fishwire. That way they'll stay connected to it while we pull it up into the taillight pocket. And carefully pull our wiring up and remove the tape to separate it from our Fishwire. We're going to put our connectors onto our wiring. So we'll strip some of the insulation back on all 3 of our wires. We'll start with our yellow wire. I'm going to take one of the blue connectors, slide it over, and crimp it down. Now the white and brown wire, we're actually going to tie those 2 together. We're going to use the yellow connector, put that over our wire, and crimp it down. But once we have our ends crimped on, we can feed our wires through this square opening here in the body of our Ford. I went ahead on our factory wiring here. I pushed some of the sheathing back to expose more of our wiring. We're going to need to cut our purple and green and our solid purple wire in half and put spade connectors on those as well. So I'm going to give us more than enough room here on each side. Snip those in half. And peel that insulation back. Now we're going to put blue spade connectors on all 4 ends. We'll use that same technique that we used on the wires earlier. Now we can take our diode and get those hooked up. Now on the end closest to the connector, we're going to start with the solid purple wire. We're going to connect that to the single outpost on our diode. The other end of the solid purple wire will plug into the end portion. Then we're going to take the yellow wire and plug that into the last remaining end terminal. Very similar for the other diode. We're going to take the purple and green wire, plug that onto the single outpost. Take the other end of our purple and green. We'll go into the inside. And finally the white and brown wire will get plugged into the last terminal. Now when you have them all plugged in, what you can do is remove the backing paper. That'll expose some sticky tape. We're just going to go ahead and stick the 2 diodes together. With our diodes all connected, we can now reinstall our tail light in the opposite order that we removed it. Once the tail light is re-secured, you can go ahead and plug your electrical connector back in and push your diodes up and out of the way. Now what we're going to do is run our green wire over to the passenger side, and we're also going to run our white wire. This white wire is going to act as a jumper from the driver's side over here to the passenger side. So we'll take that white wire, kind of run it over, and hold it up to eyeball it. And give us enough wire to work with. So what I'm going to do is very carefully cut that white wire away from the yellow and brown. And I'll peel all that back. I went ahead and dropped down our pull wire through the passenger side taillight pocket, and I'm going to tape our green and white wire to it, pull it up, and then I'll show you how I ran our white and green wire along the bottom side of our bumper. Dropped it down along through here, and I just used some zip ties to secure it along the way. And like I said, the green and white wire splits and goes up into the passenger taillight pocket. So here's our white and green wire pulled through our passenger taillight pocket. And we're going to do the same thing that we did on the driver's side. We're going to put our spade connectors on the end of our wires. Peel some of the insulation back. Then on both of our wires, we're going to put a blue connector on. Slide it over our wire. Same thing for the white wire. And once we have both of them connected, we will push them through our square opening. Now we can cut our factory wires. And once again, we'll peel back that insulation and get the rest of our blue spade terminals on them. So now we'll take one of our diodes with the single out terminal, connect it to our purple and green wire, the end closest to the connector. And on one of the end sides, we'll take the other part of our green and purple wire, get that plugged in. We're going to take the white wire and plug that into the other end terminal. Very similar for the other wires. Our solid purple going to the out. The other end of the solid purple will go in. And finally, our green wire will go to that end terminal as well. And so just like we did the other side, we'll peel off our backing paper and stick both of our diodes together. And finally, we can reinstall our passenger side taillight in the opposite order that we removed it. And with our taillight secured, I went ahead and plugged our connector in and dropped our diodes down out of the way. Now I went ahead and ran the rest of our wiring up to the front of our car into the engine compartment. And this is the path that I took. Just went up and over our fuel filler neck, over here next to the gas tank, and I ran it down along these lines. Now keep in mind, when you're running these wires, you want to avoid any hot or moving parts, and just secure it along the way with some zip ties. And I actually removed a couple 10mm bolts to kind of pull this splash guard down. And ran it along the lines. Along through here and up into the engine compartment. Now how I got that up there, what I did was I used a Fishwire like we used on the taillight pockets, and I dropped it down from the engine compartment. That way when I got to this point, I just taped the end of our wire to that pull wire. Then I was able to pull it back up and carry our wire into the engine compartment. And here's what the wire looks like coming up into the engine compartment. Now I made sure to kind of pull it towards the side of the vehicle to keep it away from that engine. Now I ran it up along through here, kind of down somewhat underneath our headlight, through here, and I was able to push that wire through the grill area and dropped it down, securing it to our bumper beam. And we have more than enough length here to attach our plug to it. Now one thing that we still have to do is ground our white wire. So what I'm going to do is cut it in half very carefully. You don't want to nick the other wires. And we want to work with the side that is running to the front of our vehicle. So it would be this end. So we'll kind of peel this back. and we will strip back some of the insulation. So with our wires stripped back, we can then take our included ring terminal and crimp that on. Now I'm going to ground it right down here on this part of the body. You don't have to do it here, however, you need to choose a spot that is clean, solid metal. I'm going to secure it using a self-tapping Tek screw. And give it a little push to make sure it's secured, and we're all good. Now down here at the front, the other end of our wire does have an attached 4-pole. And if you need a 4-pole connector, at this point, you would just secure it and be done. However, more times than not, you're going to need to swap this out for a 6-way. So I went ahead and cut that 4-way off, as you've seen. And we're going to hook up our 6-way to our wiring. And I'll show you how to do that now. So what we're first going to do is take the rubber cover off of our 6-way and slide that over our wires. And we're going to separate these, that way it'll be a little easier to work with. We can strip this insulation back on each wire. Now we can hook them up to our 6-way. Now there's going to be little set screws that we'll have to loosen up. That way we can push the wire into the housing. And each post will be labeled. And we're going to put the wires into the corresponding posts. So the one labeled GD will be ground, so we'll put our white wire into that. LT will be left turn, and we'll put our yellow wire into that. RT is right turn, and our green wire will go there. And up here, TM will be taillights, and our brown wire will go there. So to hook those up, we'll first start with the white wire, which will be ground. Put it into the opening, and simply take your small Phillips screwdriver and snug it down. And do the same thing for the remaining wires that go to the corresponding terminals. Now here's what it looks like once we have all 4 of our wires connected. Now I like to use a little dielectric grease and spread it over all of our terminals. That way it'll help keep it protected from the elements, help prevent any corrosion. When our wire's hooked up, we can slide over our cover. It simply just pushes on. And at this point, we can secure our 6-way to our base plate. Just use some self-tapping Tek screws. So with our plug completely hooked up, now would be a perfect time to test everything and make sure it's working. Now I'm using a tester. However, if you don't have one of these, you can just hook up to your motorhome and it'll get the job done too. And so I'll go ahead and power it up and make sure our tail lights work. Our left turn, our right turn, and finally our brake lights. And that'll do it for our look at and our installation of the Roadmaster high power diode wiring kit on our 2016 Ford C-Max.